Alright, what is up my homies, and welcome to Day to Gray Gaming. Today on another episode of Settlement Builds for Noobs, we have a new settlement that I'm actually kind of proud of, and this is the National Park Visitor Center from the Far Harbor DLC. So by now you've probably seen my horseshoe gatehouse that I included in my last episode of the Commonwealth Contractor. Now I am actually putting that defensive structure to use in a new settlement. So I wanted to actually integrate it and see if it was actually possible to make use of it. And this was one of the few settlements that I had left that actually had enough open space to actually use it. So that's what we're going to be working with today, is the National Park Visitor Center with a horseshoe gatehouse implemented. So without any further ado, let's check out the National Park Visitor Center. So this is kind of a lot of different build styles put together, just because the terrain isn't the flattest, it's kind of spread out, but it is a pretty massive build area, and there is a rather large freestanding structure that is unscrappable, and it's very difficult to patch most of the holes. But I did my best with what you can do without major glitches or exploits. So let's go ahead and just check out what we were able to accomplish in a vanilla game. Now there are going to be some small items from the Creation Club, but just about everything that I did use is just a cosmetic difference. There is something that's available either in the vanilla game or its DLC that accomplishes the exact same task, with one exception that I will mention. Alright, so before we get into it, let's go ahead and just take a look at the small external area before we actually enter our main settlement. And so right here, we have the Acadia Inn. So there's this visitor center, I don't even know what you would call it, kind of a just outcropping. And so I turned it into a hotel for traders. So this is a Bunker Hill trader stopping post. So the Bunker Hill caravans do take a little jaunt over to the island here, and we do have a small hotel setup for them. So we have a picnic table, we have a park style grill, and of course we have the Arcadia Inn. So I try to keep things kind of Arcadia themed, since we are on the site of we are at Bar Harbor in the real world, which is also very near to the Acadia National Park. All right, so in here, we've just kind of got a number of beds thrown about. We do have some patio furniture and chairs laying about. And we do have a full-service bathroom for them. So a toilet, a bathtub so that they can get clean, and a sink. So pretty luxurious by Wasteland Caravan standards. So I'm actually kind of happy with how this turned out, especially with the barn build set, which was added in the DLC. It's almost the perfect height to work with it, and almost the perfect width. Not quite, so there is a bit more of an outcropping on this side than the other, but overall, it turned out pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. All right, so let's go ahead and take a step into our settlement. So entering into our Trader's Welcome Horseshoe Gatehouse, I decided to play around with the gatehouse itself, and let's go ahead and fix that fog. And so I actually turned the Horseshoe Gatehouse into a trading area. So we have all 6 of the different styles of traders here, so that anyone can just come in and trade. So they don't actually have to get through the gate in order to do some trading. They do have to be comfortable enough to deal with all of the elevated turrets. And unlike the ones that I just showed as a proof of concept in my Commonwealth Contractor build, we do have all of the various different styles of turrets. So we have these nice heavy missile turrets for long-range engagement, because I do believe there is a spawn point right in here somewhere during attacks. The settlement actually gets attacked quite a lot, but I had a tower built here before, and so I actually couldn't get to any enemies fast enough to actually see where they were coming from. But I'm pretty sure if these will take it. We also have a heavy laser turret as they work their way in, and then once they're inside, they get shotgun, heavy laser, and ballistic turrets from pretty much every direction. So I did throw in some of these street lamps to make it a little bit better lit and make this kind of more of a public area. So they still do not provide any amount of cover, really. If you might be able to get cover from one turret, but you're still surrounded in pretty much every direction from others. So we still get that 360-degree killing zone of the Horseshoe Gatehouse. And so we do have a little bit of decoration here, but I wanted to keep this as open as possible. So we do have some of the Far Harbor fish racks to hang stuff off of. We also have an Eatrotronic over here by the bar. And we do have things like a grill over here for them to cook food, an ice machine. And we do have a Creation Club refrigerator. So don't worry about that. It's just a container. It just looks nice and looks like there's actually food in it when there isn't. So it's completely cosmetic. You can do without it. Okay, so one of the problems with this, though, is that this does or could create the possibility of someone being able to get inside this ring, or this outer ring. So we have these two semicircles, just like with the one that we built in the Commonwealth Contractor episode. But in reality, you really can't get in here. Even here while I'm crouched, you don't quite have enough room to get in or out. But if anyone did manage to glitch through, which is pretty possible, we are able to completely lock everything down. So I actually have this main gate, as well as both of the entrances to our trading areas, set on a single power switch. So we actually have a single lockdown mechanism that we can use to seal off the entire settlement. So unlike some of my other builds that you saw, kind of like the Nuka world, where you had to flip several switches in order to completely lock down, these doors were all close enough that you could pretty inconspicuously, I mean, the wires are still fairly visible, but you had a pretty decent way of actually cutting power with a single switch. So this was actually very nice. And so there's our horseshoe gatehouse portion of the settlement. So the rest of the settlement kind of looks a lot like a wall build. We had to take a number of different corridors to get around the freestanding structures and to deal with the different elevation changes. So back here, we just have a small alleyway for storing stuff. So I just threw in some crates and nets and stuff. Nice Far Harbor decorations. And so the same over here, just a pile of junk. There's obviously room for more. And then as we step up, we come to one of our major living quarters areas, as well as our major workshop area. So the accommodations here are nothing new to any of you who have seen my other builds. It's just a bed and a trunk to keep your stuff in. Settlers will spend almost no time in these accommodations anyway, so I figure why bother going all out with decorations. So these rooms are pretty much the same as almost all of my other settlements, but the trunk does give them a place to keep their stuff, so they're not just throwing it around on the floor. We are looking for social progress, not just making do and survival. All right, so in here we have our generator shack, and we do have 2 fusion generators. Not a lot of room to work around, but just enough you could squeeze through if you had to do maintenance on them. And then we have our normal workshop. So we have our armor, power armor, weapons, and chemistry station workbenches. Now, I wasn't able to completely escape grass clipping through the floor, but it didn't turn out too badly, in my personal opinion. So moving up here to the second floor, we have another layer of accommodations. So we won't bother going into each one, but you just saw there, it's pretty much the same. This is a very well lit settlement. So there's street lamps and other forms of lighting just about anywhere you go. So there's not a lot of shadows. There's not a lot of darkness. And here you can kind of see one spot where I was able to patch a lot of the the largest hole in the pre-existing visitor center building. The visitor center building has a lot of windows to work around, but I think I did an okay job. You'll see it when we get there. So this is one more area of defense. So I kind of wanted this to be a defensive structure that was defendable in 2 different areas, because our main courtyard does have gates that lead to it directly. So we actually have the ability to seal this gate from this side. And so if you were to have enemies trying to come in from the other side, you could seal this off and have a semi-defensible area to escape to. And it's actually the same story over here, where you can lock this down from here. So if someone did manage to make it through the horseshoe gatehouse, then you could fall back to this position and still be completely defended. All right, and so here's one of the main gates. So I didn't go the full castle gatehouse like you saw in my first Commonwealth Contractor video. I just went with a single powered shop gate with elevated turrets on both sides to protect against anything that tries to bum rush the gate. All right, and here we have 2 water pumps, so we do generate enough water for 20 settlers. We currently have 13 living here, but I'm pretty sure I have the capacity for a full 20. Let's see, 26 beds, 22 food, 23 water. So yeah, we have plenty of resources to almost double our population here without any major problems. Okay, and so here's a direct line into the main courtyard. So say, for instance, someone bought a Brahmin, or we just wanted to move something large into the compound. We wouldn't want to have to haul it through the horseshoe gatehouse, up those narrow stairs, and then through this hallway. We would want to just be able to move directly into the courtyard. And so we do have a direct gate there. It also gives us a secondary point of escape if we do find ourselves in a situation where we need to evacuate. Fix that weather again. All right. So down here we have our Brahmin Paddock. This is kind of the roughest terrain right here on this side of the settlement. So I decided to just try and do what I could to put a Brahmin pen in here, and it didn't turn out too badly. So we've got our Brahmin water tank over here with a water pump leading into it, and we also have a Nuka World Brahmin feeder. So a lot of people don't know that there's actually a Brahmin feeder that was added in the Nuka World DLC. So it's actually under decorations and under the Dry Rock Gulch section of decorations, and it works exactly like the bathtub feeder that is found in resources. So that just keeps your Brahmin in one place so that they're not just wandering around your whole settlement. They will always spawn near them, and they'll stick close to them. So then that way, if you are building like a cattle ranch style settlement where you're using the contraptions to trap Brahmin, and you just want a big old pen full of Brahmin, then these feeders will make sure that they always will spawn near them so that you can fence them in. But for right now, this settlement just has 1, and I'm kind of okay with that. We also have a couple doggos. We've got a pit bull and we've got a Rottweiler. Both of them came from Erickson here in Far Harbor, the friendly super mutant who sells dogs. So they both seem to be pretty happy, other than for some reason they both seem to fight over the same doghouse, even though there is clearly a second. But anyway, there's that. There's just a blind alley back here. Really nothing in there, so I won't bother checking it out. But there is also the housing accommodations here. So like usual, blue doors mean living quarters. So this side, we have a little bit different accommodations. So in here, we have a full family accommodation. So this is much more heavily populated. So we do have a couch, and we have 2 different sets of beds. Now these beds are slightly different from the Vault Tech beds that you normally see me use. These are Creation Club items, but they work exactly the same way. I just wanted to kind of trade up that gray wool blanket, so now we have blue ones. So functionally, absolutely no difference between these and what you get in game, and cosmetically, very minor differences. In addition, there's also trunks to keep their stuff. They also get dressers, and they have a private dining table in here. So these are a pair of rooms set up to house entire families. So this one is exactly the same, so I won't bother going in. So we do have a little bit of variety, where normally I just give everyone the same type of accommodations except for the overseer, or in here, since we are in Far Harbor, the captain. Come on, get out of here, Fog. Okay. So this side, we're back to normal accommodations, only this time we chose Creation Club beds instead of the Vault 88 ones. So not anything major or earth-shattering here. We do have some rooftop access so that we can get to many of these turrets if we need to repair them. So there are spawn points. There's actually a bear that tends to spawn like right in this area all the time, or yaoguai, not bear, yaoguai. And so these turrets actually will engage it pretty often. And so these ones just kind of give more protection against stuff that tends to spawn in this area. And there are random events where sea creatures will just come in from just about every direction. So we do have 360-degree turret coverage, even though under normal attacks scenarios, we don't need them. But if we do get that fog condensers are down event where we're just sitting here and stuff breaks, then you need the turrets in all directions to protect against it. And this just kind of shows the Brahmin Paddock from down below, so we can actually look down and see what's going on with them. And once again, we've got a storm rolling in. All right. So in here, we have our greenhouse. So we grow pretty much every type of food that's available in-game: carrots, corn, potatoes, razor grain, mute fruit. I need more mute fruit. Watermelon and gourds. So all of these produce food. You can use them for various things. There is the noodle cups that use just razor grain, and then there is the vegetable starch, which is an adhesive item. So a lot of people like to raise those. But there's also some uses for other things. So the melons, for example, are used to make Vim Refresh. One of the flavors of Vim you can craft using melons. So I do use them. And then gourds, I think that, I don't remember what I use gourds for, but there is a rare time that I do use gourds. So just like you saw with my Vault 88 build, I decided to try and add in a sprinkler system. So this isn't an actual functional sprinkler system. I just used the electrical conduit. And so it does just kind of pop out here at the floor and terminate nowhere. But from above, you can see it looks like a series of pipes and sprinklers. And they pretty much go everywhere there is a flower bed. Now here we have these potted ferns. Now these are a Creation Club item. So this is what I kind of said earlier. These do kind of cheat the system a little bit. I don't like using them because each of these potted plants that came with the Creation Club that you use will increase settler happiness. I'm not sure how much, but they do tend to make the settlement happier, where normally potted plants don't do that. But I wanted these because these mutated ferns grown in pots actually fits the Bar Harbor main aesthetic very well, because they tend to eat fiddleheads. So fiddleheads are actually the juvenile fern fronds that are just popping out of the ground, and so they're all coiled up, so they look kind of like the head of a fiddle. So those are actually something that people will go out and harvest. So I figured, since we're talking about islanders who are growing their own food, a fiddlehead farm would actually be a very welcome addition to our normal food. So even though in-game they don't actually produce food, they would in the real world. So I decided to throw these potted ferns in here, and I'm actually pretty glad that I had that option. But again, it does make the settlement happier than they ordinarily would if you were working within the confines of the game. And once again, the full fog rolled in, but not to worry, we're about to go inside, so I won't bother fixing it. All right, so here we've got our porch patio. We do have a barber chair for people to hang out in. We also have a couple of vending machines. So vending machines, I do not know why, but on the back end, they have a very large area that for whatever reason, they will not allow you to plant close to anything. So these are recessed back a pretty wide margin. And I know that I can rug glitches in, but I try and build these in a manner that doesn't involve rug glitches or pillar glitches, because I want these to be settlements that someone with a low build skill could actually replicate these if they wanted. All right. So moving inside, we've got our main arcade area. So these arcade cabinets are Creation Club, but you can always replicate these with just Vault 88 slot machines. If you do not have the arcade cabinets from the Creation Club, sorry, then you can always just plant more slot machines and they do the exact same thing. But the thing is that the slot machine or the arcade cabinets are not actually used by settlers in game versus the slot machines that are. So you can actually see settlers come in, pick up a stool, and play a few rounds of slots, but they never will just stand here and play video games. So that is worth mentioning, that if you want it to actually look like they're being used, then the slot machines are the better way to go here. All right, we do have this fancy Juke and Jive, which is fully restored, and that is available in the Far Harbor DLC. So over here, we have the showers and restroom area. So we also have a couple kitties. We do have various cats around the settlement, so for whatever reason, these two have decided they want the same bowl, but there's bowls stashed all over the place. I think there's one under the stairs back here, or there was anyway. Anyway, so we do have restrooms. So we do have for men and women. They're identical either way, and they are just a toilet and a sink. And same thing for the women's room, just a toilet and a sink. But across the way, we have showers. So we do have this private changing room, and we do have this locker area for people to keep their stuff. Now, this is a Creation Club locker, but you can easily replicate this aesthetic with a Vault 88 locker and a small shelf. So I just liked this, that it was all one object, and I was playing around with Creation Club home decor set, which contained that. So I wanted to see what all was in there, and I liked it. It was a single object. I didn't have to fiddle too much with it. You can easily replicate that with other objects. And then, of course, we have our decontamination arch, which will get rid of any rads if you have them when you use it, but this serves as the shower. So we get a nice private shower experience, and there are two of them. And it's the same basic story. You have the small changing room, and then you have the shower. And I did try and wall these off a little bit so that you don't have to deal with peeping toms. And then we have the main cafe, which I'll get to, but I want to show this stuff first and then finish off with that, since in my opinion, that's kind of the coolest area in the settlement. So over in here, in this torn up room, I was able to close most of the holes, but not all. So we do have this small air gap here and there. And I just threw in some weight sets and a pommel horse. So some basic exercise equipment, which I don't know about you, but if I had all these holes in the floor, I wouldn't exactly trust these weight sets. But that's just me. I really couldn't, without any form of glitching, fill in this floor at the visitor center. So I just left it as is. So up here, we have the captain's quarters, and this is pretty small, but the usual fare for my minor accommodations. So we do have this nice wraparound desk. So I do have a place to sit down and write some letters or disassemble a weapon if I need to. And we do have some of these various Creation Club plants stashed about just so that I can play around with them and see what all options were available. We also have Creation Club bed, which a Vault 88 bed will do the exact same thing with the exact same amount of space. Your Vault 88 trunk, your dresser and locker for storing all your stuff, and just a couple nautical themed paintings about, just like you see pretty much everywhere else in here. And so that's the captain quarters. Now let's check out the main cafe. So we do have the bar that's down at the Horseshoe Gatehouse, but I didn't want residents here to have to go all the way down and outside of the settlement safety zone in order to use the bar. So I actually built a second one in here that's specifically for the residents of this settlement. And so in here, I played around with the cycling lights a little bit to get a little bit neater mood lighting. And I think I'm going to actually go back to my Starlight Drive-In and add some of these lights as well to the arcade, because I really like the atmosphere that they create. Otherwise, it's your usual fare, some food-related signage along the walls wherever they will fit. There are so many windows here, it's hard to actually place any signage in here. We do have our row of various dispensers. So we have our Vault 88 soda machine, we have an ice machine and drink dispenser, we have our tray for dirty dishes, we have our Nuka-Cola mixer, and this is one of the few settlements that I felt the need to actually place the Sicilian espresso machine. I normally don't put that there, but I figured we're going all out here, so why not? So I really like that in here. We also have a cash register. Normally I don't bother trying to set up an extra counter that you can put a cash register on because they won't fit on top of the bar. So you actually have to build a table to set a cash register on if you want it to be at the same level. So normally I don't bother with it, but here I decided to play around a bit and make this actually look like a fully functioning eating establishment. We also have this cooking stove, which is slightly glitched through the wall in all the wrong places, but I wanted to have as much room as possible. The fridge, which I really like and looks like it's populated with stuff, even though it really isn't, is a Creation Club item, but I really wanted that aesthetic in here. So in order to actually get through here and step inside, I needed the fridge to be moved this far over, which meant that the stove had to be slightly glitched through the wall. So not a perfect solution, but not overly noticeable if you're not paying that much attention to it. And so that is my dining establishment. We have our normal diner tables, and we also have a bar area with some seating. The seating is also Creation Club, but there's almost an identical stool in the Vault 88 DLC as well. So, like I said, just about everything that you see that was a Creation Club item does have an in-game equivalent. So, you're not really being forced to purchase Creation Club content if you really don't want to. Plus, everything that I've gotten is something that I received for free. That guy's head's poking through the glass. That's wonderful. All right. So with all that said, that is my visitor center. So it's a nice wall build. It kind of serves as a promenade build, but not really. And we are also trying to reuse as much of the main building as possible, as well as this freestanding structure here. So all in all, I'm very happy with how this turned out. I want to hear your thoughts on this, so definitely leave those down below. As always, I've been Gray. It's been a blast going over this settlement with you, and I hope to see you all here next time on Gray Gaming.